In 1939, the Royal Air Force was barely 20 years old. Yet in just 6 years, it would defend Britain from invasion, bomb German cities into ruins, fight Rommel in the desert, hunt U-boats over the Atlantic, and battle the Japanese in the skies of Burma. Along the way, it produced iconic squadrons, legendary pilots, and unforgettable victories, but also endured bitter defeats and terrible losses. So, how capable was the RAF in World War II? When the war began, the RAF fielded only around 2,000 combat aircraft. On paper, this seemed impressive, but in reality, it was modest compared to Germany's strength. Fighter Command had roughly 600 Hurricanes and 300 Spitfires. The Hurricane was rugged and dependable, while the Spitfire was sleek and fast, both highly capable in the right hands, but hampered by their short range. Bomber Command's arsenal was larger, with about 1,000 aircraft, though many of these, Wellingtons, Hamptons, and Whitleys, were incapable of striking deep into Germany. Coastal Command, tasked with patrolling thousands of miles of ocean, had fewer than 300 aircraft and was chronically neglected. Yet the RAF possessed something the Germans did not: the world's first integrated air defense system. Radar stations lined the coast, feeding data to Fighter Command's operations rooms, which coordinated squadrons in the air. Backed by the Observer Corps, this system, designed under Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, would soon prove vital. When France fell in June 1940, Hitler turned his attention to Britain. The Luftwaffe deployed more than 2,500 aircraft, outnumbering Fighter Command nearly 2-to-1. Dowding, supported by Air Vice Marshal Keith Park of No. 11 Group in southeast England, orchestrated the defence. For 4 months, British and Allied pilots flew over 90,000 sorties. They destroyed around 1,700 German aircraft, but lost 1,023 fighters and 544 pilots. Among the heroes of the campaign was Polish 303 Squadron, which in just 6 weeks destroyed 126 German planes, more than any other unit. Czech pilot Josef František, flying with them, became a legend with 17 confirmed kills before his death. Another icon was Douglas Bader, who, despite flying with prosthetic legs, scored 22 victories before being shot down and captured in 1941. The victory was narrow, but decisive. Britain survived, Hitler postponed invasion, and the RAF proved the effectiveness of Dowding's system. After the Battle of Britain, Bomber Command became Britain's main offensive weapon. At first, the results were poor. A report in 1941 revealed that only 1 in 3 bombers even came within 5 miles of its target. Casualties were appalling. In 1940 and 1941, crews faced casualty rates of 20% or more on some missions. The arrival of the Avro Lancaster in 1942 transformed Bomber Command. With its enormous payload capacity, up to 14,000 pounds, and later the ability to carry the colossal 22,000-pound Grand Slam bomb. It gave Britain real striking power. In July 1943, more than 700 RAF bombers devastated Hamburg in Operation Gomorrah. Between November 1943 and March 1944, Bomber Command flew 9,000 sorties against Berlin, though losses were brutal. Nearly 1,000 bombers were destroyed. Perhaps the most famous raid of all was carried out by 617 Squadron, the Dambusters, in May 1943. Using Barnes-Wallis's ingenious bouncing bomb, they breached 2 dams in the Ruhr Valley. The mission cost 53 men their lives but became legendary. By 1945, Bomber Command had dropped more than 1 million tons of bombs. But the cost was immense. Out of 125,000 aircrew, 55,573 were killed, a staggering 44% death rate, one of the highest of any Allied force. While Bomber Command hammered German cities, Coastal Command fought the U-boats that threatened to starve Britain into submission. At first, the RAF could do little. In 1940 and 1941, convoys were devastated. convoy SC-7 lost 20 of its 35 ships, while HX-79 lost 12 in a single night. The problem was the air gap in the mid-Atlantic where aircraft patrols could not reach. The introduction of the long-range B-24 Liberator, equipped with radar and powerful searchlights known as Lee lights, finally closed that gap. 120 Squadron, flying from Iceland, became particularly deadly, destroying more than 20 U-boats in 1943 alone. By the end of the war, Coastal Command aircraft had sunk 212 U-boats outright and shared credit for another 85. Their patrols secured the Atlantic lifeline that kept Britain alive. In North Africa, the RAF began weak but grew into a decisive force. Early on, Gladiators and Hurricanes struggled against Italian fighters and German Messerschmitts, and casualties were heavy. Yet the RAF adapted quickly, introducing Kitty Hawks, Tomahawks, and later Spitfires. Among the great figures was South African ace Marmaduke Pat Pattle, who, flying Gladiators and Hurricanes, scored at least 40 victories, possibly more than 50, before his death in 1941. By the time of El Alamein in 1942, the RAF was flying more than 1,000 sorties per day, relentlessly attacking Rommel's supply lines. With fuel and ammunition cut off, the Africa Corps was forced into retreat. Meanwhile, in Malta, RAF squadrons endured relentless Axis bombardment. Despite constant losses, Spitfires based on the island managed to shoot down more than 270 enemy aircraft in just 1 month of 1942, keeping Malta alive as a vital Allied base. The RAF's worst defeats came in the Far East. In 1941 and 1942, squadrons flying outdated Brewster Buffaloes and Blenheim bombers were slaughtered by Japanese Zeros and Oscars. In Malaya and Singapore alone, the RAF lost over 600 aircraft in a matter of weeks, most destroyed on the ground. But the RAF rebuilt. By 1943 and 1944, equipped with Spitfires, Hurricanes and Mosquitoes, it supported the Allied advance in Burma. RAF squadrons flew more than 100,000 sorties during the campaign, supporting the Chindit operations and aiding the recapture of Rangoon in 1945. So, what were the RAF's strengths and weaknesses during World War II? The Spitfire emerged as one of the finest dogfighters of the war, vital in 1940 and still competitive years later, though hampered by its short range. The Hurricane, though outclassed in air combat after 1941, proved invaluable as a rugged ground attack aircraft. The Lancaster became the most effective Allied heavy bomber, capable of carrying vast bomb loads, though it was lightly defended. The Mosquito, fast and versatile, could perform precision strikes with minimal losses. Even the Sunderland flying boat earned renown, once fending off 6 German Ju-88s at once. Not all aircraft succeeded, however. The Brewster Buffalo proved hopeless against Japanese fighters, and the short Sterling bomber suffered from poor range and altitude. And ultimately, what were the RAF's losses and achievements? By 1945, the RAF had grown into a global force with more than 1 million personnel and over 20,000 aircraft. Its losses were immense. In the Battle of Britain alone, it lost 1,023 fighters and 544 pilots. Bomber Command lost more than 55,000 men. Coastal Command lost more than 2,000. In the Far East, more than 1,000 aircraft were destroyed in just the opening months of the campaign. Yet the RAF's achievements were decisive. It stopped Hitler's invasion plans in 1940. It helped to break the back of the U-boat campaign. It flew more than 1.2 million sorties across the globe, and it produced legendary squadrons and aces, from 303 Squadron and 617 Squadron to Douglas Bader, Guy Gibson, and Pat Pattle. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, then please like, share, and subscribe for more analysis of the Second World War.